when I'm communicating with someone, I don't know what they look like in life. I often won't know the gender, but the gender will sometimes come through more as a feeling. If I do know the gender, it's usually through a feeling. I'm not saying like blue or pink.
There comes a moment when every gift is put to the ultimate test. For Hollywood medium Tyler Henry, that moment arrived far sooner than anyone expected. At just 30 years old, the man millions trust for clarity now finds himself facing challenges that have left fans asking questions no reading has answered. What changed? And how did the psychic who built a career looking into other people's futures become caught in a story no one saw coming? Join us as we uncover the tragic story of Hollywood medium Tyler Henry. The year the medium lost his memory. In early 2025, Tyler Henry was riding the highest wave of his career. His Netflix series Live from the Other Side had just been renewed, and he was scheduling a nationwide theatrical tour that would bring his mediumship to thousands of paying fans. At 29, he had already achieved what most mediums only dream of: celebrity endorsements, best-selling memoirs, and a loyal following that stretched across the globe. But that was the surface. Under that, something else was unraveling. Tyler had been canceling private sessions, his publicist citing scheduling conflicts. The truth was that he was struggling to remember the details of his own readings. In a podcast interview recorded just weeks before his world collapsed, Tyler had let something slip. He mentioned suffering from debilitating migraines that felt like someone was squeezing his brain from the inside. He also admitted to having strange gaps in concentration, sometimes forgetting the names of deceased relatives he had discussed in previous sessions. He explained that he had already started writing everything down immediately after a session because he was afraid he wouldn't remember it in a matter of minutes. At the time, listeners dismissed it as the overwork of a busy celebrity. They didn't realize Tyler was describing the gradual compression of his cerebral ventricle by a colloid cyst, a rare tumor with an incidence rate of 1 in 3 million. On May 7, 2025, Tyler married his partner of nearly a decade, Clint Godwin, in an intimate Beverly Hills courthouse ceremony. The wedding was small and deeply emotional. Clint had originally messaged Tyler for a reading back in 2016, but within days of their first meeting, Tyler found himself a part of his family. Their relationship had weathered the storms of fame, skepticism, and Tyler's chronic health issues. But the joy of the wedding was devastatingly short-lived. Just 2 days later, Tyler was rushed to the hospital. The cyst had expanded, and the buildup of cerebrospinal fluid was threatening to cause a fatal herniation. The emergency surgery lasted nearly 7 hours. Surgeons drained the recurring cyst and successfully removed the adjacent colloid tumor. When Tyler woke up in the recovery room, he was disoriented and terrified. He kept asking if the surgery was successful every few minutes for the first 24 hours. For a medium whose entire professional identity relied on holding specific, fleeting impressions of the deceased, this short-term amnesia was existential cruelty. Fortunately, most of Tyler's cognitive function returned within a week, and he was placed on strict bed rest for a month. But the celebration was premature. By November 2025, Tyler noticed the swelling symptoms returning. The pressure behind his forehead, the halting speech, the migraines, they were all back. His medical team determined that another surgery was unavoidable. It would be his third brain surgery overall and his second in just 6 months. The procedure was declared a success, but after the surgery, things weren't looking up. In December, Tyler posted that even after 2 weeks of recovery, he could only hold on to about 10 minutes of short-term memory. It's really sad to imagine Tyler in this way, especially when you know where he is coming from. The boy who knew too much. The life Tyler was born into is in no way comparable to the life he made for himself. Tyler Henry Coelwin was born on January 13, 1996, in Hanford, a conservative town where reputations traveled fast and being different could make life deeply uncomfortable. He was an only child, born 3 months premature to David and Teresa Kulowin. Growing up, Tyler was described by relatives as a shy, bookish boy who preferred the company of his own thoughts to the rough and tumble of the playground. From a very young age, Tyler exhibited what his family called unusual sensitivity. He would often stare at empty corners of a room and describe seeing people who were not there. His parents initially dismissed it as an overactive imagination, the harmless fantasy of a lonely child. But the events of April 2006 changed everything. Tyler was 10 years old, sitting in his living room, when he suddenly felt a crushing wave of sadness that seemed to come from nowhere. He turned to his mother and said, with absolute certainty, that his grandma just died. Moments later, the phone rang. It was his father, calling to confirm that Tyler's grandmother had suffered a fatal heart attack. Tyler has recounted this story dozens of times over the years, and his version has remained remarkably consistent. That first premonition, as he would later describe it, was his first experience of knowingness, the term he uses to distinguish his intuitive flashes from ordinary guessing. But at 10 years old, he did not recognize it as an ability. He recognized it as a terrifying burden that separated him from other kids before he even had the words to explain why. Navigating middle school and high school in Hanford proved difficult, to the point that Tyler has described this period as one of the darkest of his life. Some of his peers pulled away, while others simply did not know how to treat him. He didn't yet have a mentor or a community to reach out to. He was entirely self-taught, dealing with both his emerging psychic abilities and his sexuality in a town that sometimes held prayer circles to cure him. To survive, he learned to hide the parts of himself that made others uneasy. But being different came with a price. His gift didn't just show him strangers' secrets. It also revealed the future of the one person who mattered most to Tyler. The decision to walk away. Just as Tyler was learning to survive the social isolation of high school, his gift delivered its most painful blow yet. In his mid-teens, he fell deeply in love with a boy named Terry. Terry was his best friend, his first romantic attachment, and the person who understood his unusual sensitivities without judgment. But Terry carried a dark shadow. He had survived childhood brain cancer. The cancer was in remission, and everyone around him hoped, prayed, that it would stay that way. Everyone except Tyler. One day, without warning, Tyler received a devastating psychic impression. He suddenly knew, with the same crushing certainty he had felt at age 10, that Terry's cancer was going to return. And not only would it return, but it would also take Terry's life before he reached full adulthood. The knowingness was absolute, and it was paralyzing. But instead of bringing him closer to the person he loved, the knowledge drove him away. Tyler made a decision that he openly admits haunts him to this day. He created distance and cut Terry out of his life. He protected himself from the pain of watching Terry die by abandoning Terry before the death could occur. As a result, he lost his first love without the final moments they could have shared. Terry did eventually pass away from brain cancer, just as Tyler had foreseen, leaving Tyler with the agonizing double burden of having been right and having failed the person he loved most. Despite this crushing personal tragedy, or perhaps because of it, Tyler graduated high school on an accelerated track at just 16. His initial ambition was not to become a television medium, but to work in hospice care. He believed his ability to sense approaching death would be useful in end-of-life nursing, allowing him to comfort patients and their families in their final moments. He enrolled in a nursing program, determined to use his knowingness for good. But the demand for his private readings grew so quickly that he found himself at a crossroads. Strangers were seeking him out, desperate for connections to their deceased loved ones, and the money he earned from these sessions began to rival the income of a full-time nurse. He made the difficult decision to drop out of the nursing program and pursue mediumship full-time. At 18, just as his career was beginning to gain momentum, an MRI ordered after weeks of severe headaches revealed the congenital cyst that would shadow his life for the next decade. Doctors told him it was benign but needed monitoring. That first surgery, performed shortly after his 18th birthday, was a brutal wake-up call. He had narrowly escaped death, and the experience completely rewired his perspective on the line between life and the afterlife. When you hover on that edge multiple times at such a young age, you look at your work through a totally different lens. For Tyler, death had become something he had brushed up against, and he was beginning to realize that his gift offered him no special protection against it. So how does a boy who lost his first love to the very thing he foresaw end up reading for the most famous family in the world, the Kardashian launchpad? In November 2015, Tyler's life changed forever. He appeared on an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians to give a reading to matriarch Kris Jenner. The reading was emotionally charged and remarkably specific. Tyler mentioned a deceased friend of the family named Nicole, correctly identified that she had died in a car accident, and relayed a message about a particular piece of jewelry. Kris Jenner was visibly shaken, and that episode became one of the season's most talked-about moments. Within weeks, Tyler had signed a development deal with E! Entertainment. Hollywood Medium with Tyler Henry premiered in January 2016 and was an immediate ratings success. The network hailed it as its most successful unscripted launch in 3 years. Each episode followed Tyler as he gave readings to 2 or 3 celebrities, ranging from A-list actors to reality television stars. He would sit across from them, close his eyes, and begin describing impressions like names, physical descriptions, or personality traits of the deceased. Over its 6-season run, the show established Tyler's status as the most famous young medium in America. Throughout his television run, Tyler accumulated a catalog of stunning hits that even skeptics found difficult to dismiss. In 2019, he gave a reading to Jenna Bush Hager, the co-host of the Today Show. Tyler predicted that she would have a 3rd child, specifically a son. At the time, Bush Hager had 2 daughters and had publicly stated that she was done having children. In 2020, she gave birth to a son, Henry Harold Hager. In 2021, Tyler read for comedian Tom Arnold and his wife, Ashley Grousman, who were struggling with fertility issues. Tyler mentioned seeing a baby girl with dark hair and said it was very possible for them to conceive naturally, despite previous medical advice to the contrary. 2 months later, Ashley was pregnant. The baby, a girl, was born healthy. Perhaps the most stunning hit came in 2025, just months before Tyler's emergency surgery. In an episode of Life After Death, Tyler gave a reading to actress and talk show host Ricki Lake. During the session, he frowned and said, "I'm seeing fire. Not a person on fire, but a property. Something you love. There's an insurance claim coming. Please be careful with candles, with wiring, and with anything that can spark." Ricki looked puzzled. She had no immediate concerns about her home. 3 months later, the Palisades fire swept through Southern California, and Ricki's house burned to the ground. The specificity of the fire and the insurance claim made it difficult for even hardened skeptics to write off as a lucky guess. In another controversial hit, Tyler warned actor Alan Thicke about heart and blood pressure problems in late 2016. Less than a year later, Thicke died of an aortic dissection. While critics argued that heart disease is statistically common for men in their 60s, believers cited it as yet another validation of his medical intuitions. It was obvious that fame had brought him something else, too: scrutiny. And when your entire career rests on convincing people that you can see the invisible, one wrong prediction can undo 100 right ones. The misses and the unresolved scientific question. For every stunning hit, however, there is a miss, sometimes a spectacular one. Tyler Henry's critics have compiled extensive catalogs of his incorrect predictions, vague statements, and apparent failures. The most famous miss involves Khloe Kardashian. In a 2016 episode of Hollywood Medium, Tyler gave Khloe a reading about her then-boyfriend, NBA player Tristan Thompson. Khloe was already nervous about Thompson's fidelity, having heard rumors of infidelity. Tyler, after closing his eyes and concentrating, told her to stay positive, as things are going to be fine. However, within months, videos emerged of Thompson kissing another woman in a nightclub. More scandals followed, including Thompson fathering a child with another woman while still in a relationship with Khloe. The couple eventually split amid a firestorm of public humiliation. Tyler later defended himself, saying that he can only report the impressions he receives and that free will can change outcomes. Critics called this a convenient excuse that allowed him to evade accountability for being wrong. Another high-profile miss involved actress Jamie Horn, a fan who won a reading through a charity auction. Horn later wrote a detailed account of the session, describing it as emotional and profound. However, upon re-watching the footage, fans noticed several vague statements that could have applied to anyone. Tyler had told her that a deceased relative was showing him a man in uniform, a common guess, and that something with a blue car was significant. Horn admitted she did own a blue car, but had never told Tyler that. Critics argue that this is classic cold reading, a technique where a psychic makes high-probability guesses and relies on the client's confirmation to build a narrative. Tyler also predicted that a certain celebrity couple would reconcile. They divorced instead. He told another client that a deceased relative had left a specific piece of jewelry hidden in a closet. The client searched and found nothing. The heaviest accusation leveled against Tyler is that he exploits people's grief. Skeptical Inquirer magazine has published multiple articles dissecting his methods, with critics arguing that his success is not built on any real connection to the afterlife, but on the desperate longing to hear one last word from a lost loved one. The backlash exploded after his Netflix series premiered. Across platforms like Reddit, many called his psychic persona a highly choreographed performance, manufactured purely for fame and profit. During his live theatrical tours, skeptics accused him of using hot reading, the controversial tactic of secretly researching audience members beforehand. They claim he capitalizes on confirmation bias, the psychological phenomenon where people only hear what they desperately want to believe. Tyler has denied any such tactics, stating that he does not allow producers to research his clients. He has also welcomed scientific testing, though he has never undergone a rigorous double-blind study published in a peer-reviewed journal. But of all the misses in Tyler Henry's career, none haunts him like the truth he failed to see in his own home: the bloodline betrayal. For 26 years, Tyler called a woman named Stella his grandma. She was the matriarch of their family and the woman who had raised Teresa Kerlewin from infancy. But Tyler's gift never once flagged her as a danger until the truth came out in 2019. It was supposed to be a joke when Tyler's mom, Teresa, took an at-home DNA test, but the results she received took her by surprise. Turns out, Stella Guidry Nestle was not Teresa's biological mother. In fact, Tyler shares no blood with Stella at all. The story only gets scarier from there. Back in 1970, Stella left her 2 biological children in California and moved to Louisiana. There, she convinced a struggling single mother named Mary to hand over her newborn daughter, after which she forged a birth certificate and presented that baby to her children as their new sister. That baby was Teresa. As if that wasn't enough, Teresa didn't even get the chance to grow up in a loving home. Instead, she was raised by a psychopath who shot and took the life of motel owner Judy Wang and Judy's boyfriend, Y. Lee, just so she could steal the property. She then called her 18-year-old son, Peter, and forced him to help bury the bodies. Peter eventually testified against his own mother in exchange for a reduced charge. By the time Stella was found guilty of double murder and sentenced to life in prison, Teresa was just 7 years old. Stella served over 30 years before her release in 2009. So when Teresa learned that Stella wasn't actually her mother, she was relieved that she wasn't actually related to a murderer. But Tyler didn't really find relief in the discovery. It felt like the worst kind of failure to miss something so horrific under his nose. He later explained that he missed it because he was too close to the situation. But to many, that just sounded like an excuse. As of August 2026, Tyler Henry is still recovering from the aftermath of his 3 brain surgeries. He is still struggling with short-term memory fog, though he has been documenting his slow improvement on social media. With Clint's help, he is able to navigate the daily challenges of memory loss. However, it is still hard to tell if this would permanently affect his mediumship, and, for now, Tyler doesn't seem to be bothered by it. He is more focused on learning how to live with himself. Do you believe that Tyler's predictions are not random guesses? Do you think his brain surgeries could end up affecting his gift? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.